Fine by everyone. Yes. So you welcome everyone to an AM session with the FCDC. And if you're just joining us for the first time, the FCDC is a global community that provides mentorship and other learning opportunities for BIPOC marketers and developers. And one of our goals is to put money in the hands of people or the pockets of people of color. Today, we will be talking about an interesting topic, and which is top skills that hiring managers are looking for in 2026. And we have with us to answer all of our questions and share his knowledge with us, Jon Robinson. He is a marketing technologist with over 10 years of experience in the industry, creating demands for brands. And he is the founder of RR Digital, a legal marketing firm. And I was reading Jon's LinkedIn bio and came across two statements that caught my interest, which we're going to be talking about shortly, but then I'm going to tell you what that statement is. He says he hires the best tech first staff from around the world. And then the second thing was that they hold each other to an A players only standard. And this makes me think this person is keen on excellence. And we're just so glad that we have someone like that who has also hired talents from around the world join us on this call to answer everything about the top skills that hiring managers are looking for in 2026. So please help me welcome Jon Robinson. I'm going to be happy if I can see some virtual claps and your emojis. Thank you so much, Jon, for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get right into it. And the first thing that I want us to talk about is those two statements that I say caught my attention. What does it mean to hire tech first staff, and then how does it work, or how do you guys hold each other to an A players only standard? I'm curious to know because I believe that it relates so much to the topic that we're talking about today. So I want to know what that means.
Yes. Um, so two distinct but equally important things. Um, how do we hire people, and why do we hire people tech first? Um, One of the questions that I ask people when I interview them is, tell me how you use technology in your daily life. What phone do you use? Are you a Mac person? Are you a PC person? Like it's embedded into everything that we do because I mean, we're an SEO agency, or I mean, we started as an SEO agency. I mean, we have 80 employees now, um, and we do much more than SEO. We have a video department, we have a paid marketing department, we have a PR department, we have a social media department. But all of those things all require use of technology. Like you can't be a good disciplinarian of any of those crafts without having a strong hold on how to use technology today. Not like just comfortableness with it, but like staying up on like what the latest trends are. So, I'll talk to people and I'll ask them about during interviews. We'll talk about like what's the last, like if we're talking about SEO, what tell me about the last Google update. Where did you learn about it? Right? How did it impact any of the clients that you were working on? What are some of the things that you've seen or heard about happening in the industry that you want to test out on your clients, but maybe you haven't had the opportunity to? So like, well, it's all wrapped around this use of like, how do you use technology in it's like this merging of personal and work, right? Technology is embedded in everything. So it's just so important. I mean, here we are, right? Like I'm talking to you all over the world. We're live streaming it. Like there has to be a level of comfortability with like getting that all set up and making it look good and right. So that's the technology part of it. It is essential. If you are a great writer, but you are not able to use Grammarly or able to do some keyword research and like understand how to use technology to make your writing better, then we're just not the right company for you. Maybe there is somewhere else, but the the A players side is it's interesting that you call that out because it's much more than just something that I put in my bio. Uh, e- every every full-time employee gets a welcome package their first week from our company with a book. And that book is by an author named Jocko Willenick. Jocko Willenick was a an ex-Navy SEAL, which is like the penultimate um, military team in the United States, right? These are like the people who get called when there's like a special tactical mission. So he wrote this book called Extreme Ownership. I do not read a lot of books, but I read this one. Actually, read half of it, and I listened to the rest on audiobook. But everybody at the company gets a copy of this book and is asked to read this, and it embodies this concept of holding your peers accountable. If one person fails, the whole team fails, especially if you're a Navy SEAL, right? You're on a military mission, and if something bad happens to you, well, then the team goes down. And it's the same way at our company and in everything that we do. Um, Basically, the way to think about it is the team itself operates at the level of the lowest common denominator, not at the highest. So if you have a team of A players and one C player, your team operates at a C level, not at an A level. And if you have, we basically tier people into A's, B's, and C's. We ideally want everyone to be an A. If you're a B, B people, B players bring C players into the organization. A players bring A players into the organization. And the culture of the company continues to evolve depending on how many A's and B's and C's you have. If someone is a B, that means they have the potential to be an A. If someone is a B, that also means they have the potential to be a C. And if someone's a C, they cannot be in the organization. And that is, again, it's embodied into everything. Like, I mean, Shweta sees it. She's here. She sees me all the time, like calling people out across the company for things that are maybe just need improvement. And like we have to have it from the top down and from the bottom up throughout the whole company of like radical transparency and holding each other accountable. And it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that like if something happens that's like doesn't go well, that it means that the world is ending. It doesn't. It just means that we have to identify it. We have to talk about it. We don't have to hide it. And that's part of being an A player. It's not doing everything right. It's just holding people to a high standard that you would hold yourself to. And it has to be completely permeated throughout the organization. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And then, people just say, like, oh, you're being a jerk because you're calling people out. No, I want people to call me out too. Right. That's the only way that I get better. That's the only way that you get better.
Thank you very much for satisfying that curiosity. And I believe it also helped someone here. Okay, and true, calling people out and giving people the opportunity to exchange feedback is actually how everyone gets better. So let's get into it.
Mhm.
And my first question would be, what are the top skills hiring managers are actually paying attention to when it comes to say hard skills versus soft skills, which one moves the needle more in hiring decisions?
Um, so I think probably the most important skill is one that's extremely difficult to vet, which is curiosity. If you are not curious about improving your craft, you uh, you just won't be successful long term. It also means you're probably doing the wrong thing, right? You need to really love what you do. Um, but I don't know, I haven't yet come upon a way to truly evaluate whether or not someone is curious enough um, objectively. It's really hard. Some of the things that I talked about, in answering your last question, I think they they take a step towards that, right? Identifying how are people finding out about improvements that are being made within their discipline? Where are they hearing the news about it? Like, um, how much does that permeate itself beyond on the 9 to 5, right? What are people doing just outside of work hours, and how does that even a little bit show that it's embedded into what they do for work? Um, by the way, I'm giving you my feedback. I can't speak for all hiring managers, right? I'm telling you what works for us. The curiosity is really important. Um, to answer your question about hard skills versus soft skills, I think both of them are equally important. Um, However, someone who has the hard skills but doesn't have the soft skills when it comes to making a hiring decision, inevitably they'll get passed over. It's just the reality. Like you could be a really great, you know, whatever the role is, but if you can't communicate with people, if you um, if you don't have those soft skills, it doesn't really work, right? It won't work long term. So we try to first vet people for the hard skill, right? Can you actually do the job? And there are ways to somewhat objectively do that, right? You give people tests, assessments. You can, talk to them during an interview. You can ask for samples of work. There are ways to sort of check that box easier than it is to check the soft skills box, because the soft skills, like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've hired and I think that they are one way, but then the way that they are during an interview is just so incredibly different than the way that they act when they actually are like sitting at their desk doing their job. So hard skills will get you to the table, soft skills will get you hired.
I like how you wrap it up. Hard skills will get you to the table, but soft skills will get you hired and maybe even keep your job if eventually hard skills made you
Mhm.
get hired. Yes. Okay, so what skills do you think that professionals aren't paying enough attention to or exploring fully to its potential? I know there's AI in the scene now and it's involved in our everyday work, but um, would it be AI or some other skills that you think that people aren't fully exploring or paying attention to?
Um, I mean, AI is important, but I think that's the easy way out if I gave you that answer. I think everyone knows that. Um, what I have found become more and more prevalent is that it doesn't matter, again, and I'm speaking from a marketing agency perspective, it doesn't matter what role you're in. I think every single function at the company in one way or another benefits from a developer. And if there isn't a developer who is just able to work on whatever it is that you're working on, especially at a large organization, right? Like people get siloed to certain projects and you just don't have resources just sort of sitting around. Um, the more you can be comfortable, even with just development terminology, the better, right? Do you know what an API is? Do you know the difference between an API and a webhook? Um, do you understand very basic HTML, right? If you think about these things, like, well, I'm a paid marketer. I need to know how APIs work so I can fire a conversion API for my Facebook ads and not rely on a developer to do it or to troubleshoot it if something is not working correctly. Or if I'm a content writer, I have to understand basic HTML and JavaScript, um, even just conceptually, so I know which elements of a page need to be structured in certain ways, or which elements of a page should be presented in JavaScript versus presented in raw HTML. And you could go through every discipline just from a marketing agency. And I think everyone would benefit from having some level of just exposure to development terminology. Uh, Even better if you can just get like, can you poke around and use, workflow based tools like Zapier, right? Do you understand how schema works and JSON? Like, um, it all just benefits you and gives you more opportunities for growth within an organization because it helps you stand out from your peers and allows you to work cross-functionally with other departments. You can speak the way that technical people speak outside of your own discipline. You may be a content writer and could speak like a content writer and your AP style. Um, but when you're actually talking to a developer who's going to be implementing that content on the site, or you talk to an SEO who's optimizing that content, right? Then all of a sudden you're stepping outside of the comfort zone of that role and presenting yourself as a multifaceted asset to the company that becomes irreplaceable. It's very difficult to find people who can work in multiple functions. They don't even have to be in multiple functions well, right? Just people who can work in multiple functions and understand the things that are happening that they're doing that affect other departments. So anyway, that's my answer. I think like a little bit of development goes a long way.
Yes, thank you. I totally agree. So, guys, I hope that by now you're enjoying this conversation with Jon. And I know that some people be expecting top skills that hiring managers looking out for, expecting the mentioning of different kind of skills. But if you pay attention well enough, you would understand that two things that Jon has mentioned, which is number one, curiosity. Curiosity is a skill that you need to develop and also do things outside your comfort zone, just as he just said. Do things, learn like development terms, learn things, whatever skill you have, whatever industry you're working in, learn stuff outside, understand industry terms, some development terms, and then just do stuff that are outside your immediate role because it makes you someone who is sought after. So thanks, Jon, for that. And we'll just move on to the next question. You've talked about identifying people who can use technology in their everyday work. And right now, we have AI being involved in different workflows. And I want to know how you can, especially during the hiring phase, differentiate a writer or a marketer, someone who says, I use AI, from someone who actually uses it well. How do you differentiate between these two sets of people?
The answer I'm going to give you, I think, can answer a lot of questions, not just AI, right? So, how can you tell that someone is doing anything well or can impress you with a certain skill versus someone who just says that they do it? I'm going to agnosticize this somewhat, right? When I'm doing interviews, I make it a point that when the person I'm interviewing says anything general at all, I stop them and I ask them to be more specific. And then when you start getting into like logistics, tell me how you did that. Tell me why you did that. What's something that went wrong when you did that? What's something you learned when you did that? It doesn't have to just be AI, but this is how like most people come prepped for interviews, ready to talk about a variety of different things. I think people should come prepped for interviews for that specific role and be able to talk as deep as possible about the things that they are prepared to speak about. When it comes to AI, it's a much easier conversation, honestly, because it's very easy to tell people who are talking about prompting chat GPT versus people who are building things in codex or Claude code where they've got an AI agent that's connected to a number of different MCPs. Like the terminology starts coming out. There's no pauses in the communication. Um, they don't avoid the details when they're asked about them. Whereas, people who you just use it or just kind of know about things, they they speak hyperbolically or generally, and then avoid the specifics when you start asking about it.
Sure. Okay, so since we're talking about the interview stage now, let's talk about how a candidate can be memorable during interviews. How can
Mhm.
any marketer who is on this call, or we may also have some developers on this call, how can they stay memorable during interviewing and even when they land the role?
Yep. Um, well, let's start even before the interview, right? How do you get the interview, right? We're hiring for people all the time. I think right now I probably got two or three different job postings open, hundreds of applicants, right? We have a full-time recruiter now who's just going through all the applications, again, vetting for hard skills, right? We get to the soft skills during the interview process. I would say the way to stand out is number one, if you're going to send a cover letter, which you don't have to, but if you're going to send a cover letter, don't use a template. I know it takes a while, but like when I get a cover letter that's like not at all related to the job or just tangentially related to the job, I could tell it's boilerplate. Actually, it hurts you more than it helps you. So I don't even think cover letters are necessary. Um, when people reach out to me directly and they say, "Hey, John, I saw this job that you posted. I actually think that's a perfect fit for me. I've been looking for a job for a while. Here's why I think XYZ that you put on the job description fit me. Here's what I've done. I'd love to talk to you about it." Just people reaching out and having like a personal touch and showing that they really want the job, as opposed to people going through LinkedIn or Indeed and just clicking apply, 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 apply because they're desperate for a role. Um, that personal outreach means a ton. When it comes to the actual interview process, the things that the things that wow me and make people memorable, I think, are the people who listen. When it becomes a conversation and not a I'm giving you a question, you're giving me an answer, and I'm just lobbing them back and forth. And I can get into a deep conversation with someone about something they have done or something they want to do, and we're talking about their craft, and I could see the passion in their eyes, and they really just, the next thing you know, it's an hour or an hour and a half has gone by, and we've had this really great conversation about something. I could see them fitting in at the organization. I could see that they actually care about their craft. Um, so I know that's not really like a like what's this, let me check this box and make sure I did this. I'd say the two biggest takeaways here. One, if you really want the job, multi-thread yourself and find any person you can at the company and reach out to them and tell them why you want the job. I've hired people that way before. And then the second way is when you're actually on those interviews, don't like really value the fact that the interviewer chose you out of a pile of 100 to actually speak with, and come extremely prepared for that interview. Understand what it is that they want from that job description, from that job posting, and come prepared to check every single box and talk in depth, passionately about all the items that are in that job posting. Come with specific examples, right? Be over prepared.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And the next question I'd like to ask about being prepared. I know that the CV also plays a part, as you mentioned earlier, in being prepared to interview or to get in the door of an opportunity.
Mhm.
Is LinkedIn. So I'm curious, I want to know what or how much does a LinkedIn's presence, someone's LinkedIn presence, factor into the hiring decision? That's even before they get the interview. And I'm going
Mhm.
to do it to one question, and the second would be about the CV. What are the most common mistakes that you've seen that you think immediately reduces a candidate's chance even before they even know it?
Um, Resume, 1 page.
Oh,
I've seen
okay.
resumes that are 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages. People think that the more information I give you, the better. No, you're correct, right? The resume is to get you the interview. The resume doesn't get you the job. So you want something that's going to call out your fit for that role. Um, I found it like really helpful when people call out like in bold, like things that I think are like really important or relevant. So I always value people who have some level of exposure to Salesforce, right? They don't have to be administrator. Maybe they were an end user in their role at some point in the past. Like, okay, Salesforce. So bold the word Salesforce, right? Bold, um, various things. I also, one of the things that I would say, like, for mistake, um, if you're putting on your resume, you were responsible for X% or X dollar amount growth in whatever. If you get the interview, I'm going to ask you about that. And if you weren't actually responsible for that, that is a huge pitfall. and I like the conversation winds up being over, right? Don't look at the resume as a way to pound your chest. All it is a way to show that the skills that you have fit the skills that are needed and that you have the appropriate experience that is needed for the role. You'll prove yourself on the actual interview. Um, and then I already made my comment about the cover letter, right? Not something that I'm a fan of. Um, how important is LinkedIn? LinkedIn, more important than you think. Number of reasons. Okay. When I'm going to interview someone, so our recruiter has identified someone, maybe they already had a first round interview, and they're like, John, here, we've got three candidates for you. Um, we're going to line these up, and then, you could help us choose who you think is the right person. The first thing that I do is go to their LinkedIn. And the first thing I do when I go to their LinkedIn is I look at their last post and I read it and I see. And sometimes people haven't posted in 3 months, makes it really difficult to assess. Sometimes people are engaging, on things that are completely irrelevant to what it is that they're being interviewed for. And then sometimes they're like posting, great things and I'm learning stuff. Um, so it it could help you, it could hurt you. I would say it is important, but not a deal killer. Right? There's some people who just haven't had a LinkedIn and I just haven't had any information like, oh, there must be something special about this person, the reason why they don't have a LinkedIn. Sometimes it's just because they just don't have one. And sometimes it's um, they've chosen not to have one, right? For whatever their role was previously, they couldn't really be out there.
Okay. Thank you. And my other question is, we've talked about marketers, whatever you're doing, whether you're a marketer on this call, you developer, whatever industry you're working in, we've talked about
Hmm.
curiosity and how to learn stuff outside your immediate role. And I'm thinking, where does a beginner stand? How do we help a beginner come from beginner to maybe B player and then A player? So my question is, uh, what
Hmm.
career advice would you give to someone in the early stages of their career? And what would you say to a senior professional who feels stuck and isn't sure what's next?
A senior professional, you said,
The first
who
one is
feels
a beginner who may be on
right,
this
right.
call and is thinking, wow, I have a lot to learn. I have to learn these terms. I have to
Hmm.
somehow be a B player or maybe an A player. So how would you advise someone who is just starting out? And what would you also say to a senior professional who feels stuck, currently stuck in their career?
Got it. Okay, two separate things.
Two
Okay.
separate things.
Um, for people who are in the early stage of their career, what you want is exposure and experience. You want to see as much as you can see and learn as much as you can learn and be willing to get your hands dirty in whatever it is that people need help with. That is going to get you, I mean, you're going to learn work ethic, but you're also going to see at the lowest level of a company, how does the work actually get done? And inevitably, someone who is going to be giving you tasks is going to be more senior than you. Maybe it's your manager, maybe it's someone from a different department. You're now getting exposure to what it's like to be at that level. And you're learning, these are the motions that I need to go through. These are the things that I need to learn in order to be able to get to that level. Um, the easy answer here is like, don't come in with any sort of ego at all. You're entering an organization, they're taking a chance on you in the early stage of your career. Show that they made the right decision and always provide value above and beyond what people expect of you. That is what will get you noticed. That is what will give you more opportunities. That is what's great for your career early on. You become an invaluable asset. I can't tell you how many people have started with us as either interns or entry level who have worked their way up to managers, directors. Um, I mean, I think it's great to work your way up through an organization and get to see you make yourself invaluable as you continue to grow. Now, the flip side of this, a senior level employee who feels stuck. Um, that's an interesting one. I guess ask yourself why. Why do you feel stuck? One of the things that I sound like a broken record at this point because I say this every time I'm interviewed for something. Um, we tell our employees anytime we have our like annual all hands meetings, if you are doing the same thing that you were doing today, that you were doing 6 months ago, something is wrong. If you always have that mindset of, I could still be like, my job is my job, but the way that I do my job, it has to evolve somewhat. And I used to say 6 months. I think now it's probably much more often than 6 months, just because of the way that the world is evolving and like the way marketing is evolving and technology is evolving and AI is evolving. You're stuck because you chose to be stuck. You could unstuck yourself very, very easily. Think about how you're doing your work every single day and figure out how you can make it better, faster, not easier, but how can you get more output or better output from what you're doing just by changing how you do what you do.
Okay.
And if you're stifled, sorry, I just to add on to if you're stifled in a role that where they're not letting you go outside of your comfort zone, like you're probably going to be stifled for a long time. And that may not be the right fit for you. And you should start evaluating like, is this the right place where I want to be?
Yes, I think I wanted to touch down on evaluating if this is the right place and maybe even the right career path. Because when you said if you're stuck, then you are the one, something about you're the one wanting to be stuck. And it felt hard, but then it's the truth. And I want to find out, let's talk about transitions because sometimes when
Hmm.
people feel stuck, it's either that they realize that they want to pursue something else, or that, as you said, maybe it's the same way they've been doing their tasks that they're still doing maybe 6 months ago, and then today it's still the same way. So what about if this feeling of inadequacy is because this person has realized that they want to transition? And my question here would be, what would you advise someone, or when would you advise someone to explore or transition into a completely different path? And if they decide to transition, how do they, or would you approach, or how would you advise them to approach that transition? Um, when you're answering this, please factor in someone who could be stuck and actually want to make this transition because of that.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think it depends what they want to transition into. I mean, in your example, is it someone who wants to transition into a different function at the same company or a different company?
It could be in the same company because I know of someone who transitioned from social media marketer to product marketer within the same
Mhm.
company. So it could be within or in another company entirely. And let me just add this as well. And I also mentioned explore because I think that sometimes we do not transition completely into a different path, but we layer on what we already do. For example, I could be a content marketer and say that I want to also become a product marketer. And I'm still a content marketer, but now I'm learning product marketing, right? So just let me know if that's clear.
I mean, it sounds so simple, but I don't think any employer is ever going to say no to someone who's willing to do more work. Just do it. If you think that like you're a content writer and you think you can add value being a product marketer, well, first off, you have to learn how to be a product marketer. That's on you to go and learn those skills. Let's just say you've got the skills. Check that box, which is not an easy box to check, but you've taken the courses, right? You've watched the thought leaders. You understand how to do it. Now you want to do it. Just do it. Just find like what's the product that your company is offering? What is a gap that currently exists in the product marketing strategy or execution of someone else's strategy? How valuable would you be as an employer if you go to your manager and you say, "Hey, I've done my job. I do all the things that you want me to do, and I do a great job at it. But I also took interest in this, and like, here's, this deliverable that I've done for this other department. It is entirely up to you to do it. And once you do it, now again, you've created this like unicorn employee who becomes invaluable because now they can exist in multiple functions, assuming that you do it well, right? Or you've opened up the door to now two paths of growth for you as an employee. You can progress through your original growth path as a writer. You could progress through your growth path as a product marketer, or maybe there's now a hybrid function that exists across both.
Thank you. I think this question somehow answers my last question. I believe that some people on this call have questions, and I saw one in the chat box. Um, but I'm still going to ask this question. It's about
Sure.
preparing for opportunities. For example, I want to grow within the company that I work in. How do I prepare myself for a promotion? And if it's someone who doesn't have a job and they're looking for, whether they have a job at all and they're looking for new opportunities, maybe outside the organization, or someone who doesn't have a job and wants to position themselves for new opportunities, how should the person approach this?
hmm Um, Thankfully, we live in a world now where you could just come up with a concept and just execute it without working for a company. So if you don't have a job, that doesn't mean you're not working. You're looking for a job. I understand that in and of itself is a job, looking for a job. But part of that should be showcasing how great of an asset you would be to a company, right? If you want to be a writer, you should keep writing when you don't have a job. If you want to be a developer, you should keep developing and showcasing the tools that you're building. And um, if you're an SEO, right? You should have your own site that you're constantly optimizing. So like basically show that the job is more than just a job, and it truly is like part of your core skill set and something that you can add value in.
Thank you so much, John. It's been interesting chatting with you.
Sure.
This last question, we've been talking a lot about top skills that candidates can get to position themselves to be hired.
hmm
And I'm also thinking about us. I'm thinking about people who are candidates that are looking for jobs. And the question is, how should a candidate who is looking for a job, what should they look out for in firms that they want to work with? I know we've talked a lot about acquiring skills to get them hired, but in the application process, while I'm looking for a job, how do I also vet a company and be sure that this place has good culture, or I would grow, have this potential to grow in this company? What should I look out for when I am looking for a job? That's my final question.
That's a tough one. Um, that's a tough one. I mean, the easy answer is just Google it. Like, what is it like to work at X company? Inevitably, you'll get like Glassdoor reviews, although those are sometimes slanted towards negative. Um, Larger companies, there's uh, forums and communities where the employees will talk about working there, but that's only like really larger organizations. I think looking at looking at the leadership and start Googling the leadership and seeing like how does the leadership portray themselves externally is probably helpful. Um, it's tough. That's a really tough question to answer because every organization is going to have its flaws, right? And the sun is always brighter on the other side of the street. Whatever you're doing right now, you always think like if I go somewhere else, it's going to be better. Um, every organization has its challenges. They're just different challenges. I think you just have to, you know, you have to vet an employer as much as the employee, as much as the interviewer is vetting you. You need to vet the company, right? Are they giving you an opportunity to ask questions during the interview? Are you taking advantage of that? Right? Here's a great question you should ask. Who was the last person who left involuntarily, and who's the last person who left voluntarily? And tell me about why they left. That's what the person being interviewed should ask if they truly want to understand the culture, right? Um, what does my first 90 days look like? What are the measuring sticks by which you are going to judge me as an employee and whether or not I'm successful? When should if I'm very successful in my role, what does my growth look like here? I mean, these are the types of things like you want to know, just ask the questions. And they'll either give you the answers that you want to hear, or they'll give you the answers you don't want to hear, or they'll be upset you're even asking the questions in the first place, which is probably a sign that's not a company that you want to work for.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry, Ibeleje, I just want to jump in here and ask
Mm.
a question. And you said something earlier on when you were talking about skills, and you were like, content writers should be able to understand HTML, SEO should be able to understand this and all of that. And the first thing I just thought of to myself was, man, I blame AI. I blame AI for all of this, because in the past, nobody will be asking someone who is a tech SEO to be learning all these things, or someone who is a content person to be learning all these things. So I guess my question is, do you think that AI is now a necessary skill that you are subconsciously looking for when you are interviewing or hiring candidates? And be honest, John. You have to be honest.
Mm, I don't think it's subconscious. I think it's conscious,
Mm.
right? We're having conversations about how do you, we talked, rewind back to the beginning of this conversation. The first question that I was asked was about the use of technology,
Mm.
right? How are you using technology? How could you be a technologist in your craft if you're not using AI in some way in 2026? It's not possible. You have to be using it. So it's not a subconscious thing. However, there's a big difference between using it and like truly leveraging it. We want to know how people are leveraging it. What are the things that you are doing that other people haven't done yet, or they're not out there advertising? It's one thing to say, like, I'm going to open up Claude. I'm going to say, write me a page about this topic. Like, that is meaningless, right? I want you to tell me, and I want to see your eyes light up when you start talking about the crazy shit that you built that integrated 3 different tools and automated this, or like that's the exciting part. It's just another opportunity to talk about how you can do your job really well. It's a way that you should be using, a method you should be using to do your job really well.
All right. I guess my next question is, if we're looking forward, to 2027, where do you see the industry going in terms of the skills that hiring managers like yourself are going to be looking for based on what you're seeing right now in the industry? Like, if you're trying to future proof your skill sets, if I may use that language. I know
Yeah,
I'm prepared for this one.
I, I mean, it's really hard without talking about a specific role
Yeah,
to give you
I'm
the answer to that.
SEO, to be honest, more technical SEO.
Yeah, technical SEO.
Yes.
Um, there is no reason. Great example. Great example. Okay. Yesterday, right? I wanted to examine the the server logs and parse through. I pulled 3 days of server logs from one of our clients. There was 110,000 rows. What am I supposed to do with that without AI? Right? I fed it, and I knew what I was looking for, and I had it parse through it all. And in 30 seconds, I had the answers that I was looking for. You could not do that before. If you're a really good technical SEO, you need to understand what tools are available to you today to do the things that you want to do. But that doesn't make you a good technical SEO. What makes you a good technical SEO is understanding the things that you want to get out of using those tools. That's what I think like you can't get with AI, right? When I was looking at the server logs, I knew I want to know, okay, go through it all. I want to know how many times the site is getting hit by all the different AI crawlers, which pages are getting hit the most, how often Googlebot is coming back to each of these pages, and which of those pages is also getting hit by Bing. And then I'm going to correlate that to how my client is showing up in ChatGPT for various prompts, right? Like you have to know that that's what you're trying to do and being able to talk about that and then realize that 2 months ago, you couldn't get those answers without spending a week parsing through data. And now you still are going to get the same answer, but it's only going to take you like 2 minutes and like 1,000 tokens, right? That's the difference. Those are the skills that people need.
I think this is interesting because it means that this is now like embedded in the way we even think about technical SEO and content. And it's not just, oh, okay, I need to be able to write a Python script. It's now the capabilities of what we can do is expanding. And we are now thinking of technical SEO, both in the core skill set, obviously, but also in how you can use AI to apply
Yeah,
outcome-based solutions. And that's fascinating.
100%. I'll give you another example. Okay. We have a process that we run, and for months, we've been running this manually. Every single website, we have like our senior technical SEO at our company. Every single website, every Friday, would get a fresh crawl, and he would go through all of we had like a dozen different errors that would come up, and he would go through, and for each client, he would put on a spreadsheet, here are how many of each of these errors, and then he would link a separate document with what those errors were, and then give it to each of the teams. And this is in addition to like the crawls they're running throughout the week, but it's to make sure as we head into the weekend that like every site is completely clean. Okay. It would take him hours to go through this and validate it all. Oh, because it would say that these external links are 404ing. Oh, well, they're not. They're blocking Screaming Frog from crawling them. So he would go through manually and check, and they would come back as 200. So there would be false positives, right? I give you a dozen issues that he would have to go do this manually. Well, last week I just automated the whole thing and I run it Thursday night, and Friday morning, all of the errors are delivered to each of the team leads that are running each of our clients, and they now have all that information. And now our senior technical SEO has an extra day back to go either help fix issues, identify new things, but like he conceptualized this is the process we're running every week, and I'm going to make sure that everyone has this information. And then we just took that and we just layered AI on top of it to make sure that it could be done in a really efficient, fast way. I tell people AI doesn't save you money. AI costs you more money. If you're using AI to save money, you are looking at it completely upside down.
Okay. I wouldn't even say it even saves you time, if I'm being honest. I think it just allows you to do more stuff you wouldn't have been able to do in the past, but it's definitely not saving you money or time.
No. Well, it'll save you time on certain tasks, but then you use that time on other tasks.
Yep.
That's all.
That's what I realized doing last week, and I was like, all right, I'll let
Yeah.
it take over again. But thanks for answering my question, Jon.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Thanks, Jon. Thanks, Chima. Okay, so let's answer some questions in the chat box. I see some here. Someone says, what skills do researchers see for SEO expert roles? I don't know if Jon understands that question. Jon, do you get that question?
No, could you ask again? I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I
didn't quite understand.
just saying, what skills do researchers see for SEO expert roles?
I mean, SEO expert. So basically, like if we're looking for an expert versus entry level or mid level, I mean, honestly, like coming up with stuff yourself, not like following the pack. Like what an expert is truly an expert, not because they know where to look to see what other people are doing, but because they've run their own tests, they've come to their own conclusions, they've debunked their own theories. To me, that's an expert.
Okay, so second question says, what about people? This is about the conversation we had about LinkedIn presence. And the person is saying, what about people who don't post on LinkedIn and use it purely to keep up with industry news?
Start posting. Start commenting on the industry news. Um,
Like,
be yourself. It is part of your resume, whether you want it to be or not, right? You could choose what you put on your resume. You could choose what you put on your LinkedIn. You can't choose whether or not someone's going to go there and look at it. You need to be prepared and just assume that everything that you are putting out on the internet is going to be looked at when you're being evaluated for a role, good or bad.
yes. Okay. Lindsay is saying, how about someone who newly transitioned into the SEO space with less than 2 years industry experience, but with real hands-on experience with results? How do they navigate job openings when the recruiter is looking for over 3 years of experience?
So you're saying 2 years of experience in SEO, but more than 2 years of experience in other things,
So he has less
right?
than 2 years of experience in SEO. He recently transitioned into the SEO space. He has less than 2 years of industry experience, but he has hands-on experience with results. And he's asking how to navigate job openings where the recruiter is looking for over 3 years of experience.
I'll go back to the point I made about personal outreach. You really want that role, you'll reach out to whoever you can find at that company, ideally the hiring manager or someone within the SEO team, and you'll tell them your story and why you only have 2 years of experience, but you think this is the right role for you. That's the only way that you could really do it, right? If you're getting auto screened out, which happens a lot, right? As I mentioned, there's hundreds of resumes that come through and applications that come through for every job. There's some level of like automatic filtering that happens. Um, just reach out directly. It's the only way you can sort of end around it.
Okay, so I have another question from Ahmad, and it says, what about a person with 5 years of in-house experience? Just give me a minute. 5 years of in-house experience in one industry. How can this person prove their eligibility for roles in agencies and other industries, considering that this person can adapt to a different industry or to different industry SEO strategies?
Mm. That's actually an interesting one because I think so. I mean, our agency is only law firms, right? And ideally, we would take people who have experience working with law firms. However, we have, for some reason or another, probably about a dozen people who have come from the auto industry. It just works, right? I think you need to find the parallels between the industry that you have experience in and the industry that you're trying to get into. You have to draw those lines. Don't let the interviewer do it for you. You have to show, here is why I worked for other local service businesses with high ticket values, which is very similar to, what you see in the legal industry or, whatever it is that you're trying to get into. Um, you got to make it easy so that they're not drawing their own conclusions, which inevitably will be skip on this person, right? You want to show them that it's actually a strength. I've learned X, Y, and Z in this industry, and I think that would actually really apply to your industry, and here's why.
Okay, so I had mentioned that a few developers may be on this call, and I just saw a question from one of them. What
Mhm.
skills are relevant for a full stack developer? Um, so this person is a newbie, and they are both 40 years of age, and they're transitioning career paths. So I think that's context to that question.
So, transitioning into development.
Yes, they're transitioning into
Um,
development and they want to know the skills that are relevant for a full stack developer.
there's a lot. I'm going to pick one just because this has come up because we're hiring for a full stack developer right now. You pick a stack and be comfortable with that stack top to bottom. So maybe it's Google Cloud, maybe it's Azure, maybe it's AWS. But like right now, we've got a whole tool set that we're building on AWS. I don't want someone who's only worked in Azure, right? I want someone that when I'm going to talk to them about S3 and Bedrock, like they're going to understand what I'm talking about and I don't have to translate it. So I know you're sort of picking a lane and having to stick to it, but I think I mean, it could be all three, right? Or even other platforms. But I think being comfortable with an entire platform and being able to work within that platform is a way to stand out. And also, it puts you on a path, right? AWS has certifications for all their different products, and you sort of like understand the use cases for using this versus using this, just because it's all within their documentation, because it's all one ecosystem.
Okay, thank you very much, Jon. I think I'm just,
Mhm.
well, I may just ask this last question, guys. This is the last question I'm going to be taking. Jon has talked a lot about how to approach roles that you really want, especially for people that are either transitioning or maybe you just saw a role that you got and you love. But I'm going to ask this question for the sake of this person, and it's the last. How do I get
Yep.
access to paid internships as someone who just transitioned into email marketing? As a matter of fact, I don't have experience in the use of ESPs just yet. I have only been learning the practical aspects that don't require software, like copywriting and designing automations.
I'm going to plug the FCDC because they'll pair you with an internship with an organization that can use your skill set. Um, I mean, other than that, like I don't know any other paid internships that are really out there and available, where you can kind of pick up those skills like that. So yeah, that's what I would do. Talk to Chima.
Great. So if you're not in Slack, please try to join us on Slack and you'll be able to have access to myself or Chima. And then our mentorship sessions where we pair people with senior professionals for a 1 month mentorship will be coming up soon. So thank you, Jon, for plugging in the FCDC. And it's been a wonderful time having this chat with you. Thank you so much for your time, for the knowledge you've shared with us. I believe this has been valuable to everyone on this call. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Yes. So any last words
Thank you,
before we go?
Jon.
Yeah, you are all very welcome. No, I just happy to support the FCDC. Great organization, great people. Yeah, no, this is fun. If anyone else has any other questions, you could feel free to reach out to me. Like LinkedIn, great place to find me. I'm always checking my messages there. Um, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Have a great week.
Yep. All
Yeah.
right. Take care.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone for joining. Take care as well. Bye.